looking at a screen, you can pick whichever you want to see.
So what's the branch, by the way? Should we?
So there's a public repository. If you go to dateroots.io, the GitHub
Okay,
page.
I took it already. I think I took it. Is it that guy? It's that guy. Updated an hour ago, right?
Yes, that's the one. I'll share my screen as well. Gauthier, you're already fans. Team Gauthier, I see. In the Slack, in the chat.
Wait, who's? Can't see. God damn it! I really do not understand. Where is the chat? Okay.
So if you follow my screen, so you can switch normally on the top of your screen. It says you are viewing someone's screen, and that under view options, you can also choose other shared screens. So I'm now currently showing the GitHub organization, and there is a repository called Building a Python Package. FOC stands for Fumbling Over Code, but if I would
Yeah.
pronounce this out loud, it is a bit weird. I'll put it in the chat. So, voilà.
But when do we start, by the way?
We're already started. Huh?
Okay.
Oh, really?
What?
I cannot see your screen, actually.
Who's Virginie?
Me, and no screens. I actually always see your faces. Your video.
Oh, you can double click on the face, I think, to see.
Okay, so I see Gauthier is doing everything from the command line and creating a bunch of directories.
Yes, I'm just starting. I'm creating a bunch of directories, and I'm starting a Pip project, basically, which should now be reflected in here. All right, cool.
So which IDE are you using, Gauthier?
Yeah, I'm using a PyCharm. I'm an IntelliJ guy at the start, so it's the same controls for me. It's easier.
So what are for you the main things that you do?
So,
in the
okay.
package?
What I want to do there is first I want to do a real CLI, which I'm going to use Click for, and I would like to for the main it's going to be like 2 or 3 functions, and if I have time, I'd like to write tests, which I don't know if we will have time enough for, and of course the setup.py. These are mandatory, right? So if I get to do that in 50 minutes, it's nice already.
I can maybe quickly explain the repository for the people following. So if you would check my screen, I'm in the repository currently. There's an assignment.markdown, which basically has the assignment for us, which is to build a Python package that boosts your ego.
God damn it.
So basically just a fancier hello world example that we can call from the command line, and then gives you a complement to start your day with. And then we also have a file, a compliments.json file, hosted on the same repository, but that we need to fetch to always have the latest version of the compliments from this URL, which brings us to the JSON.
Bart, you are not sharing, actually. Huh? I can only see Pablo and Gauthier's screen. And
seriously?
Yes.
Oops. Now I am, I think.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, okay, let me quickly reiterate them. So there is an assignment.md, which holds the assignment, a fancier hello world example, basically a boost your own ego example, where we need to build a very minimal Python script that is installable, that we can use from the command line to start our day out with a complement. And then we have here this JSON file that we need to fetch and select a relevant complement from.
Okay. Maybe Pablo, you can explain us a little bit what is the first step that you are doing. I see you are filling some setup.py.
Yeah, so I'm writing in the setup.py script, you're basically declaring some metadata of your package. So when you're building, you're basically executing this basically this script. And so you want to give you can give, there's a lot of different things that you can do in this setup function, but here you're going to declare the dependencies of your package in terms of other packages, in terms of data. You can put some description, you can put some licensing information, you can put like there's a lot of stuff. You can check the documentation of the setup function, but it just basically contains all of the metadata that you want your package to go along with. So now I'm going to probably go with something very minimal, because I mean, I'm not actually trying to put this on Pipey or anything. So, but you can, for example, put in a really long description in Markdown, a README file, and put it here. Here, I'm just going to put one sentence. Sorry, I can't type and speak at the same time. So that when I build, I have this information, and here, for example, it's got some really neat ways of setting up extra things. Like, for example, I don't want to have to use Python like to call Python to call this this package. I want to be able to use it from the command line. So that here you need to put something that I need to Google, because I don't remember the name of the. Oh, maybe it's
the setup.py content is something that I always need to Google. It's like there should have been like a boilercode generator in
the annoying thing is that when you click on here to see the you can't see my screen, but if you want to use some code explorer to check the documentation of it, because it's just in the setup tools is not even declared, is like declared through something else. It's just super inconvenient to check here, so you actually need to Google it every time, which is super annoying. But yeah.
And the name of your package is going to be Compliment Me, is that correct?
Yeah. So here I'm just setting a version, author email, so that people can contact me. Some short description of what your package does. And now that I've, I think it's.
And the name is the thing that you will import, right? When you want to import your package, you will do import Compliment Me, and then there will be the compliment.py function script in it, correct?
Yeah, basically. And here you can do, setup tools has a lot of neat functions that you can use to, for example, find the dependencies. So if you say here, find packages, it'll just go through all of the contents, all the Py functions within the Compliment Me package to and include this here. And then, but if you want, this is kind of a rich thing. You can put versions. You can put versions between this version and this version. You can put like any sort of documentation here. But now I'm not going to go into too much information there. Isn't it like this?
But your screen is so small, I cannot see anything.
It's my 4K resolution. Are you now giving me a compliment about my 4K resolution?
It's my glasses. I need to change them. Maybe I don't know.
I zoomed in a bit.
Thank you. So, so what's the name of your package, Bart?
It's Boost My Ego.
Boost My Ego, and what will be in Boost My Ego package?
There will be a complement.py file, basically. I think that's going to be it.
Okay.
I'm using virtual env because I heard Gauthier is using Pip. I like virtual env because it's I don't know from which version actually. No, it was from the start of 3, but it's included in the base library, so you can do Python -m venv and then the directory that you want to call it. So you don't need any external dependencies for virtual env, which I quite like.
You are doing that because you want to test your package? Is that correct?
Well, to have a separated environment so I don't install my package or any of the requirements in the system-wide Python environment.
Okay.
So that I like, if there is like something missing. Right? Sorry?
It's the best practice to always.
It's the best practice, I think, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not actually recreating a virtual environment, but because of time, and since it's a simple package, I'm not. But yeah, this is something that you should be doing. But I'll skip it for now.
So what will be in your package, Gauthier? Can you show
I haven't done the setup.py. I'm just finishing the code at the moment, and then I'll do the setup.py. Basically, I have not touched, but I'm almost done with the code. So
how is the
Voila.
code?
You're already done with the code?
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's very minimal, right? So.
I get a feeling that you've been preparing this a bit, Gauthier.
I hope I should have maybe, because the setup.py I've never done, so this is going to be.
So what is in your package, Gauthier? Which are the files that are in? So
I only have two files, right? So one of them is the main.py, which actually contains only two methods at the moment. One of them is from a text IO, which is the general type from Python to represent streams. I just use JSON.load on top of it, and if I cannot load it, I return none. So I have an optional list of string as a return type. And then just the selection, it's the same. I'm just using the sample method from the random package, which actually might need an extra argument. I don't even know. Population. Let's see at runtime. And I'm just selecting the first element. And again, it returns an option just in case, for example, if it's an empty list or something. And then on top of that, I'm basically using those two functions to create my small CLI. That's basically it.
Don't you need an init.py?
I do need an init.py. Thank you, Virginie.
What's the goal? Maybe you can explain us what is the init.py?
Init.py just tells Python that this is a package. Otherwise, basically, I mean, most likely that if I don't do this, I won't be able to use it in the setup.py, or maybe it's not going to be recognized, or not sure. But this is the Python way to say, by the way, this is a package, and you can put some stuff in there as well.
Okay, I have a question from the audience. So what is the difference between the package and install requires?
Package and install requires. I don't know, install requires. I'm guessing it's the requirements for the install.
The packages is what your code will be using, and install requires is things that you need. For example, if you need to compile something during installation in order to be able to run your package, then you'll have to list all of those requirements in there. So it's slightly different. It's one thing will only be used during installation, and one thing will be used every time you use your code.
So it's another script that you put those requirements installed.
Yeah, it's different arguments to the setup function.
Okay. So I see that Gauthier is checking the tree of his package.
Yeah, I'm going for the setup.py. So.
All right, Bart, can you maybe explain us a little bit what you did?
Yeah, I became a bit anxious, so hearing that Gauthier is already finished.
Oh, damn it.
I've written some boilerplate code here. So one function to fetch my complements from this URL, which basically reads a JSON and should return a list if read correctly. And then I'm made here this function that basically takes a list and returns a random element of that list. So the list being a list of complements, and I'm just returning a random one. And now I hope to write some tests, some minimal tests, so to at least have an ID to see if it's working.
But these are functions, right? So what tells the package when you have to run this function? Actually, I mean, the test, of course, you will run the test and it will get those functions. But otherwise, how is it executed?
Well, I'm going to use some decorators from Click. Click is a command line helper library that basically help you to make very simply make a command line interface with Python.
Okay.
And you basically just add a decorator on top of the relevant function. It's minimal work to include it, basically.
All right, Pablo, maybe you can show us your progress. You have a main. Can you explain me what?
So basically, what I'm going to do is in the setup, you have this entry point, which allows you to automatically generate scripts when you install the package. So that it's, for example, what you can, the way that you use Jupyter Notebook, for example, is that you install Jupyter Labs or I don't remember, IPyJupyter or whatever the library is called, and then you can directly type in your console, in your terminal, Jupyter Notebook, and it will execute some Python code in the background. So this allows you to do this using this console script. So this will use the script for your terminal, and this will be called, here you just declare what you want, and this is basically compliments me, is going to be the name of the prompt in the terminal, and this will basically execute in this package, in this module, this function. And so if you go to this module here, I have written a function that reads, that goes and I should probably document my stuff, but oops. That fetches the compliments from a URL. So I'm going to use just GitHub allows you to just have the raw version of your of a file. You can get it like this. So I'm just going to use the request package to get it from there, from this URL. So then basically fetch compliments, what it's going to do is then it's going to fetch this and then it reads it as a JSON and returns the list. I'm actually going to put some checks here, probably.
What the hell is that?
Okay, maybe a little question for Gauthier. Gauthier, which OS are you using? Mac, I guess?
Yeah, that's a Mac, yeah.
And your package will be, it will be possible to run it on Linux, Windows, everything, or is there any requirement?
So the requirement for the moment is only the click library, I think. Let me double check. And URL lib2, which actually it's not needed. So only Python 3, and you need click, which should be available for all platforms, I hope, basically. At the moment, I'm just trying to install my stuff, and it's giving me a weird error.
But what would be a constraint that you could, for example, not be able to reuse the package on another OS?
I guess if click is not available, yeah, I don't exactly know how the package stuff works. Like if it's going to download it and then compile it for your platform, or if it tries to do it on the fly. But what I'm also doing there, okay, I don't have a README, which I definitely should have. But basically with pipenv, you should be able to only, just do pipenv install, and it's going to take the exact same file. So if you see the pip file there is this, but there is also a pip file lock, which basically gives the exact hashes and the exact version that I'm using. So if you do pipenv install, and you will get the exact same environment that I'm having. So normally you can go from there on. But to install it, I guess I should be more narrow here on the. Let's see. I guess I can. Worry. That should be more narrow. Okay, great. So why is this still the case now?
Maybe what I can what I'm using to test my package, or maybe not the step before the testing, is that I do a pip install editable, and that is very nice. Here you see a pip install -e, which stands for, I think, for editable actually. And what it doesn't normally install your package that you're developing, but it will install it via symlinks, meaning that if you change something in your source code, it will immediately be reflected in the installed package. So you don't continuously have to do a pip install, basically.
And this is where this is related to the.
So I need to. No, sorry, it wasn't related to a question. What I was doing is because I'm also adding some unit tests, some very simple ones, just to have the concept. And to run your unit tests with PyTest or with most testing frameworks, you need to be able to install your package and to import from your package.
Yes.
And for that, you need to install your package. And you can do that via pip-env dot meaning this directory. But then you have to install it every time you make a change to your code. But if you do -e, you make it editable. And you basically create symlinks. So your installed version always reflects what you have in your source code directory.
Well, that's very cool. Thank you for the tip, Bart.
It's the same as Python setup.py develop. It gives the same result.
Okay. I have a question for you
entry
from Dylan.
For me?
But Bart is using, yes, for Bart, that you use the type annotation.
Yeah.
But can you say it's a list of string? So he wonders if you want to be more specific about the list and put that this is a list of string, or if this is okay to just put a list.
It's better to
God damn
put
it.
this list of string. Definitely. But I'm avoiding all the Googles I need to do for that. But it's better to be as specific as possible. Actually, you need, with the current implementation at least, and there are some changes coming up for 3.9. They are very optional in the sense that if I would pass something else to there, it won't error. You can do some specific tests to make sure that you're actually aligned with what you're passing. But they are today more of a typing hint than anything else.
It's not strong type.
No, exactly.
Cool. Maybe Pablo, you can update us on what you've been doing.
Yeah, I added some error catches in my complement fetching. So basically, I'm gonna try to get.
Damn it! What is this? Oh, sorry.
I'm gonna try to get some the status code of my request, and if it's fine, then I return whatever the request content is parsed as a JSON. If the request status is not 200, then it means that something went wrong with the request itself. So I'm just gonna put some default thing here that about the complement database, and also the other type of exceptions that you can have is a connection error. For example, if you're not connected to the internet. And so I'll just put some random thing. So this ensures that we'll always have something, well, at least when we have these errors here. And then here, that should be it. And so,
God damn it.
Okay, guys, 1 more minute and then we will stop, and there will be 5 more minutes maybe
that should just work,
to see the functionalities of your packages.
So
is that okay?
Be...
1 minute is going to be tight, but I'm going to do my best.
It's the timing.
It looks like it's still installing my old version. I don't get it. Oh.
Okay.
Why on earth is still this doing?
Oh yeah, where's this?
You're making me nervous, Virginie.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it's the clock. But I think to summarize, I think we have covered a lot of the important things of the package, which is the init file, to just say that this is a package, the setup .py to name the package, list the dependencies, the license, etc., etc. And then the code, of course. Some people were testing. This is very good practice, although during this time it's very, very short.
Hey.
Okay, I don't know what's happening. I have no idea. Seriously, I don't know. It's still using some old code from I don't know where. So
mine is working, but it's pretty slow.
Okay, then I think we have to stop the timing and we have to see, because I want to see some packages run from the command line. Pablo, you want to do the demo?
Yeah, so if you have a look at my screen, so I've installed, so what I've done here is I built, I'll on this line. Wait, no, before that, here I created the tar file, basically the distribution, the source distribution. So this is you need to execute the setup pi, and then as this means source distribution, you can also create a wheel. It's like B for binary, maybe bdist or something like this. I don't remember. These are different ways of having a package. If it's a wheel, it means it's already pre-deployed for your platform, so you can install it much quicker. It's just copying and pasting files basically. And if it's from source, it's like the basic thing, and you'll have to redo everything for your platform. So at the moment, I'm just going to do that. That creates this tarball, and then you can just install it with pip. Here I just pip install, give the place where this complement me is, and then here I didn't really think this through, and it's the same name as the folder. But basically, if I now run complement me on the command line, it prints a random thing. So it takes a bit of time, but here you can just run this from wherever you are, and it will fetch one of these things from the database. And I can't try the one where your internet connection is wrong, because it would mean me disconnecting from the webinar, and then you wouldn't be able to see the results. But it should print something like you're an amazing person and like your internet connection.
Bravo, Pablo, and thank you for starting this, because I see the others are still modifying their
yeah. So I'm still having an issue, which I really don't know where it's coming from.
Now you do the demo.
Yes, I have a demo. It's not exactly how I would like it. So actually what you need to do if you want to call your package as sort of as an executable, ideally what I would like to do is something to type boost my ego, enter. But then in your setup.py, you need to define, I don't know, actually by head, I would have to Google it again, but something like executables or scripts, I think it's called, the key. And in scripts, you can refer to a script file that you want to run. So now to actually give a demo, I need to call it as a Python module. So I have in my Python package boost my ego, I have a .main file. And in the .main, I have a refer to CLI. And if I do that, I get a compliment. If it was legal to marry food, I would still choose you over pizza. And I actually have a pizza icon in front. Like this was meant to be. Yeah? If I would get this at the beginning of my day, I would be happy.
But it's always gonna be a pizza. So even if this is not about pizza, right?
But isn't pizza always relevant, firstly?
Yeah, I don't know.
Look, you're a badass. You survived the zombie apocalypse. Like, there's still pizza there. Like, this is great.
Okay. All right.
But maybe to show you something else that I did. I don't know if the other guys did it. I started it from a more or less a testing approach. So I have two functions. And to actually see that relevant stuff comes out, let's say sort of relevance, because I took some shortcuts, I also made corresponding unit tests for those functions, meaning that I don't every time have to run this command, because I've only ran this final command at the very end. So it was a somewhat test-driven approach to building this package. And for this, I like to use PyTest because it's very extensible. You can do table-generated unit tests, stuff like this. You can plug in Flake 8 as well. Flake 8 is a Python linter that basically checks whether or not your package is aligned with the PEP 8 guidelines. I used Black during the process. Black is a Python formatter, a quite opinionated one, but an opinion I like. So what I can do is I can type here Black boost my ego package, and it will reformat all the files according to the best practices defined in Black. So you see here that two files were reformatted. One was okay. That's probably the empty one, the empty init.py. That was okay. So voilà, that's to give a rundown.
And they prefer a slice of cake rather than a pizza. So agreed. All right, thank you for the packaging, Bart. And now we can go for Gauthier. Did you manage to resolve your little problem?
No, I have no idea. So if any of the other two have an idea on this, so basically I copy pasta some stuff from the internet, which is apparently still calling for some reason, and it's not in my. So I'm doing this. I'm installing my comp equal 0.3, which is this, and it's targeting my comp.cli comp method. So everything on that side should be fine, and it's still. So if I launch this command, which it should enable, it's still using this, which is something I copy pasted from the internet. So I have no idea where this is coming from. Is there a way to clean this?
You need to uninstall. You need to uninstall the maybe uninstall the package and reinstalling it. No. Just did you install your package?
Yeah, I did.
Without the setup by.
No.
Just well, you need to install your package, right? Otherwise, it doesn't. It doesn't.
But that's what you do when you do this, right? Isn't it?
No. That you generate the source files, or maybe
when
install.
Launch,
oh yeah, maybe install does it. But you can just do Python and uninstall, probably Python 3 because you're uninstall and then the name of the package, whatever you're calling your package, comp. Yeah.
Comp.
You can try again. Oh, okay. Did you install it for Python 3 though?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it says. Oh, you think that's maybe the issue? How do you specify? Anyways, okay. Not going to go for this.
But this is reality, right, Gauthier? Reality is 80% searching why something doesn't work, and hopefully 20% of the time
yeah, but
doing
wait,
stuff that actually
because
matters.
I should be able to do this then. Comp.
No, it's comp without an L, I think. Oh no, your command.
See, still using the same stuff.
I have a question in the meantime. I have a question from the audience: how to package your package to the PyPy. So to send your package to PyPy.
There is a command called like using pip, like swerve or something like this. You basically need to have like a minimum stuff for checks for metadata, and then you can check. You can use this this command to blah, blah, blah. Yes. Let me. Oh wait. Yeah, twine. Sorry, not swerve. You need it's a package, a Python package called twine, and then you can upload your.
How do you specify the Python version? Okay, anyways. I'm mad at this.
Last try, will you do it for us? Or
No, it won't work. It won't work, basically. For some reason, it's still calling some old code from the hello world, which was I think the default from the setup.py. So something is effed with my installation. I don't know what.
You need to drop pipenv, Gauthier.
which should be fine. I'm also fine with this, but wait, maybe I can actually. I didn't try this. I can most likely. Wait a second.
We have 1 minute left, and then that's it.
Maybe we can quickly turn to unit testing. Like, what are your guys' approaches to?
Okay, so testing? I didn't do any.
I didn't. Yeah.
But in general,
honestly,
I mean, what is your?
I didn't do any, but in this case, I installed something which is called PyTest Watch. Which you can run using like this. So you can do, sorry. And basically, okay, at this very moment, I have an import error, but if you do this and you don't have any huge errors like this, so let's see, let's make something nice.
But in general, when you're building something, do you use, from what moment do you start using unit tests?
As soon as I can, normally.
I think it also depends on the complexity of what you're trying to do. But definitely some of the functions that have like a self-contained, like I think this is a nice way of trying to chop it down to small things in your code. And then I would like to say that I write my tests before I write my code. but that would be a huge lie. I don't think I've done that very often. But definitely writing tests when you're going to update something is a good idea to check that it is working now. I changed something, it's still working, and so you're or you can, or it's more for updating where I will update the test first and then I'll change the code. But
yeah, me, I really try to write my test as soon as I can. Well, for this small package, it's maybe not so useful, but it gives you, because you can, what I usually do is I define my methods. So I'm going to go, which is what I did, I think. I'm going to define my methods, and even if it's Python, I'm still going to put some types in there just to know what should be in, what should come out. And then this enables like fast testing. And then you can just write some tests, say what should from an input come as an output, and then you can quickly iterate.
Mm-hmm. And I think the difference maybe is also like, Gauthier, you're a bit coming from a bit different background than me and Pablo, where we've been focusing mostly on machine learning, where I think, without giving it any value, but I think today there is still not really a big focus on unit testing. There's a big focus on experimentation, finding the best model, finding the right set of parameters. And hopefully when you found that you start unit testing some of that stuff. But like the workflow is completely different than I think you probably working as a backend engineer.
Yeah, so I'm more of a software engineer, right? So it needs to be right when I write it directly. And I need to have usually what I do is really set up the feedback loop as soon as I can, and then only start actually working on it, because otherwise you end up doing something that's not useful or not true or not well designed, because you cannot test it. So
I think definitely in machine learning, there'll be like the core modeling is very difficult to have like something like test-driven development, because you don't know the shape that things are going to take in the end. You can do tests. It's much easier for ETL, for example, to do unit tests. But for the modeling, especially while you're exploring different approaches to the modeling, it's makes it a lot harder to write tests. I think it's more at the end, you can maybe write a test to check that the types of what you're outputting are correct and this sort of thing. But I don't think writing tests for really the unit test for the model itself is that easy. I usually focus on writing tests for the ETL, and then whatever post-processing I'm doing for my results, that to check that all of this, if I've written a class or something that is going to handle my data, then I'll write unit tests for that. But in general, not so much for the model, because if your model is not perfect, you can't really unit test on a specific case, for example, and say, well, this specific data point should output class 1. You don't know, maybe your model will be getting it right once and then wrong the other time. If you've changed a bit, if you've retrained the model, it doesn't mean your model is worse or that. So I guess you can do unit tests to check that your model is still performing okay, but that is more like monitoring your models rather than really unit testing.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think the same for me is like when it comes to ETL, like feature engineering, how do you come to a feature? Those are things that you can relatively easily unit test. Actual models that are trained are much more difficult. You see it coming up a little bit, and we've done it here and there, where you do more, let's say, case-driven tests. To give a very simple example, like if you say object detection model, this picture of a dog should always be classified as a dog. So like these hard assertions. That is still relatively easy to do, but then if you go into whether or not there was a regression, if the performance increased or decreased, it's much harder to do, because you need a lot of external assets as well. You need to have metadata on the previous model. You need to have all these things in place. And for a lot of these model deployment stuff, there are still very little standards, making the testing of all those things also a challenge, I would say.
But I found it. Sorry, guys.
That was way more than 15 minutes, huh?
Yeah, I know. But so basically, I don't know exactly what happened, but just renaming the name of my source package fixed it. So I can also do comp, which is and it randomly gives me version levels of awesomeness. Okay, this is nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
Like a nice end for this session, right?
That's a nice thing.
A Virginie compliment.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions?
There was a question for you, Gauthier, I think, from Vladimir. That you use pipenv. Do you have any experience with poetry?
No, never. Yeah, really. So for the people looking at this, I'm really not a Python person. So I've been a bit forced into Python in my current job, which is where we use basically pipenv. I basically reuse the same stack that I know, but I'm not a huge Python fan, honestly.
What kind of person are you, Gauthier?
I'm a typed language with brackets person.
And how does it compare? Python versus something typed with brackets?
Yeah, I don't really like it because even if you define those types, which I still like, it's a bit better than not having types at all. You still don't get the real type check that you need, in my opinion. But that's personal feeling.
But I think this also comes a bit down to like the background and what do you use it for, because being in a typed environment and having to experiment a lot, then experimentation takes a lot of time.
Yeah, definitely. I agree.
And that is the nice thing of being in this dynamic environment, of course.
Yeah, but the thing is, then for me, it's an issue when you go more in a production settings. Basically, it gets harder because you can like we have this in our company at the moment. A lot of people are doing Python, and now we need to move their things to production, and it's like you could pass around a lot of data without it being actually checked, or without like. I don't like it so much. But for experimenting, it's definitely nice. I mean, I could not have done this so fast for Scala, for example. I'm a Scala person, by the way. So yeah.
Pros and cons.
Well, but thank you all very much. Bravo, everything works more or less.
Yeah, it finally works, and some.
Bravo.
Yeah, thanks a lot. It was fun to me. Yeah. I think it would be good. I'll see if we can send out a feedback form. It would be great to get some feedback.
Also, we'll push to our branches if people want to go from there, or I mean, at least look at it. It's maybe best.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So feedback is great. We're planning on doing something like this, not necessarily coding, but an interactive session or discussion monthly if the feedback is good. So please let us know. And if you have any follow-up questions, don't hesitate to post them in Meetup. Okay. Thanks a lot, guys.
All right.
And girls.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.